I know that there are many questions people want and need answered, so I wanted to make a brief statement in regards to my nephew, Tony Terrell Robinson Jr., and on behalf of my sister, Andrea Irwin, and his father, Tony Robinson Sr. First of all, I, along with my family, as you see, we are so grateful for the support that Tony has received. It's truly humbling to know that people knew the type of person that my nephew was, and they don't judge him based on the things that have been circulating around, much of which is misinformation. And I encourage everybody to show support regardless of race, because this is truly a universal issue. Everybody should be able to relate to this issue, and that's why it's so important that we have this support. Tony's racial ambiguity reinforces the fact that America's racial lines are completely and 100% blurred. My sister is a white mother of a black children, who have white and black relatives. We are all multiple races, and we each have our own complex heritage. There's no way you can look at me, there's no way you can look at Tony or any of my nephews and to be able to determine 100% what we are in terms of our heritage and our ethnicity. This is a bigger issue than Tony. This highlights a universal problem with law enforcement and how its procedures have been carried out, especially in light of what's happened over the summertime and many of the events that we've witnessed circulating around the news. And specifically as it pertains to the systematic targeting of young black males. My family grew up here in Madison. I grew up down the street on Ingersoll, North Ingersoll Street. I lived on Dayton Street. I lived on Willie Street at different points in my life. My mom has been a resident of the East Side virtually ever since I can remember being in Madison. And honestly, it's so hard to come to grips with the fact that my nephew was killed in an area that we have been such a big part of, and that means so much to us. Wisconsin in general, but particularly the East Side. Everybody from here, we knows what Willie Street is. We know what Willie Street is and what it means to us. And this is supposed to be a very liberal area, if not the most liberal area of Madison, Wisconsin. So, fellow Madisonians, our hands are stained with the blood of my nephew, and we are all left to deal with the aftermath. He belongs now to everyone, and that's something that we've had to accept. He is now a champion of progress. Law enforcement, I want to make this clear, law enforcement is necessary. In most cases, their efforts are very heroic, and we don't doubt that at all. I implore you all to support as much as possible, but my family asks for privacy. Privacy, especially from the media. There will be a time to address all the questions that needed answers, that need and demand answers. But for now, we ask the privacy needed to grieve the loss of a true staple of our family. There's one issue that my sister wants to be put to rest. Tony Robinson Jr. is not a father of any child, nor has he ever been involved in any paternity suit. I emphasize the word junior. The circulation of false information is hurtful, and I ask that we all just hesitate to speak on anything until the facts have been made clear. This needs to be heard. I need everybody to hashtag Tony Robinson. Spread the word. Let's get justice for everyone who fell through the cracks of the justice system, because something needs to change. And at this point, it's obvious, like I said, it's so hard for us to let go of Tony because he meant so much to us. And even now, I almost feel stoic in my demeanor here, being in the same spot that my nephew was murdered. I'm 5 years older than him. He's more like a little brother. I had to learn how to be a nephew. So with that being said, I just encourage everybody to support as much as possible. Hashtag Tony Robinson. Hashtag Justice for Tony. FOR for Tony. There's a Facebook page. I know there's a lot of independent organizations doing a lot to bring awareness and support, and we want to know that we appreciate you. We truly, truly, truly appreciate you. Anything that we can do to bring awareness, because we are completely unbiased in this. Yes, Tony was a loved one of ours, and we will miss him, and there's nothing that we can do to bring him back. But we want to know the facts of the matter and nothing else. Well, he's known to Tony to most of his friends, but the family is known as Terrell, because we have Tony Sr. over here. Terrell, a lot of his identity was formed because of his racial ambiguity. Okay, he grew up, we lived in Stoughton for a while, which isn't as diverse as Madison, let's put it. And I remember frequently Terrell not being able to hang out with a lot of the kids because their mothers came and talked to us and said that they didn't want him hanging out with a black kid. So Terrell felt a misfit most of his life, and that's why we became so close. I noticed that from a young on, and Terrell just wanted to be loved, honestly. And for that reason, he kind of got love from bad people. Not bad people, but people making poor decisions, and as a result, made some poor decisions. And I think that's something we can all relate to. We don't think Tony's a saint. We don't think Terrell's a saint. We paint him as a human being, a 19-year-old who made a terrible mistake at one point, which is completely disassociated from this act, which is what I want to make clear. And that's what's very upsetting, that they try to associate his past with this act to paint a picture about the type of kid he was. And I think we can all look back on things we did when we were 19 and thank God that we weren't caught for some of the things that we did. I know personally, I can say that. So I just want you guys to know that Terrell, he was a good, kind-hearted kid who was very happy and just wanted to be accepted and wanted to be loved. And that desire for love led him to bad places. But he was somebody who paid his debt to society, according to society, and was actively trying to better himself. And there's nothing else that we can ask of people. This is something we're going to deal with for the rest of our lives. So I can speak for myself in terms of me. I know my family has had a very hard time dealing with this. And it's in terms of me, it's pretty much surreal, you know. 1 second, you look at hashtags and you realize that's my nephew. And, you know, they speak about Tony's grandmother, and I'm like, yeah, that's my mom. So it's very surreal. I really haven't come to grips with it. I just haven't, because there's just so much that still needs to be done. So, and that's why the privacy is that much more important. What makes Madison different from Ferguson is that it's a de facto liberalism, in the sense that it's on the surface, but underneath. And this is someone that grew up here. I went to East High my 10th grade year. I remember the segregation. Me and all my friends, we sat by the steps. You know, and not to distinguish us because we're all the same, but, you know, kids of different ethnicities, they would hang out by the wall. I don't really remember it too well, but I just remember a massive segregation being around, and it's an air of liberalism that's pushed and perceived mostly because of UW, and it's being progressive in its history. But when you look at the Capitol, things are a little different in terms of who's actually running the government. So I would say, like I said, it's different, but it's very similar. And let's be very clear, very, very clear. It takes one bullet from a trained gunman to end a life. It takes one bullet, and we know how many were fired. To make it clear, we appreciate the police and we understand the necessity for them, but once again, that does not excuse what happened. Now, that if the body cameras are around, we don't have this conversation because we all know exactly what happened.
Thank you. Exactly.
Tasers also, and the use of the procedural force, the force of continuum. You know, not escalating the violence too far as it's brought to you.
How would you characterize the way your family's been treated by the Department of Criminal Investigation?
There's very little I want to say about that, but I will say I'm very upset with the way they've been treated. My sister has still not been able to see my nephew, her son, and in some regards, I just feel like it could have been handled a lot better and a lot more respect afforded to us. I trust Wisconsin and the way they're handling the investigation. We spoke to investigators from DCI. We trust them, and we trust them to handle this with integrity and to treat it as it comes. We don't want our biases involved. We don't want anybody else's. We want them to act as strictly as fact finders, and that's what they've assured us, and we believe in, and we have confidence in that. We don't want to stop at just Black Lives Matter, because all lives matter. To look at Tony and say that he's black just off his appearance is something that we're basing off legislation that was 150 years old almost now, less than that. I'm referring to Plessy versus Ferguson. Okay, Terrell is a mixture of everything. You can't look at him and say he's black. He's black, white. He's a mixture of everything, because we all have our own complex heritage. We move as a unit. We try not to isolate anybody for too long. We just all want to be around and make it clear that, you know, it's okay to cry. It's okay to express your feelings. That's what makes us human. And every day you're human, it's a good day to be alive, right?